Well, hello, everyone. It is Lisa and Joe Sabelhaus here today of the Sabelhaus team of RE/MAX Town Center, and we are doing our very first podcast.
Well, this is exciting.
Joe, did you just find out about this?
I did.
Well, so what are we going to talk about today?
Well, what is everybody else talking about today?
I think everybody out there today is talking about rates.
Like interest rates?
Interest rates for sure.
Like mortgage interest rates?
Correct. And how about how they always get them confused with what exactly the Fed does?
Well, that is correct. They don't go hand in hand, but there's a correlation, but it's not, apples to apples.
Right. So if the Fed bumps the rate 0.75, that doesn't mean, or 75 basis points, that doesn't mean that mortgage rates automatically pop 7.5.
Correct. It's an indicator, though, of where the Fed is kind of heading in the future, and mortgage rates are much more tied to inflation than they are to what the Fed actual rates are. But where the Fed is going with their rates is a reaction to inflation as well, so they're tied together.
Certainly. But
not directly. But so the mortgage rates are really going to be more in line with what's going on with inflation.
Okay. And I think that's what has people so wrapped up today is, people can deal with bad news, they can deal with good news, but it is that indecision and that they get paralyzed.
Correct. And it starts with bad news, but they don't know how far the bad news is going to go. Right. Are we at the end of the bad news? Are we driving off a cliff? They just don't know what the answer to that is. And it's not exactly clear what that answer is going to be, but there are signals out there that things are going to get better.
Right. I know. There are, people saying, well, when is it going to show its head? And I think today we had a little glimmer because it did seem that rates did improve slightly today.
They did. Today they had a very nice day. At the end of last week, they had a couple good days, Thursday and Friday as well. But that followed about 10 days of severe pain.
Correct.
That came our way, or came everybody's way with the 30-year fixed rate.
Right. I mean, what are you telling buyers that you're working with today?
So, my favorite line out there right now is the Fed is getting what the Fed wanted, right? And the Fed wanted to slow things down. They needed to slow things down, and first in, first out, right? And the first thing that they needed to slow down was the housing market, right? And so they went heavy with the interest rates and severe to get that slowdown going, right? But it's going to come to the point where inflation is going to peak. And what we're hearing is peak inflation should be in October. So the readings we get in October are for September, right? And it's always done on a year-over-year basis. When we get the November readings, November of last year, that reading in November was the first bad month or bad year reading we had. Right. And so right now we're getting readings of 8.1, 8.3%, those type numbers in inflation. But what we're going to hear in November is somewhere around 4.3, 4.4, something like that, because year over year, it only went up that much. Right.
But if it's year over 2 years, I guess that's where people kind of freak out a little bit.
It's not going to help anybody's wallet. You're still going to be, the prices aren't going to change at the grocery store. The gas pump has gotten a little better, but it's not going to change the prices or the situation. But what it does, it changes that thinking of the fear, right, of especially with the Fed. And the Fed needs to keep a close eye on how far they're going to go and how far can we take it, that we don't want to drive the economy off the cliff, but we want to drive it to a nice, smooth kind of ending to this. And when those inflation numbers start coming down, the Fed's going to start taking their foot off the pedal a little bit, and then the mortgage rates are going to react to that. That's going to be the first thing to react to it and start getting better.
Right. And again, mortgage rates typically anticipate those announcements from the Fed.
Correct.
Even before they are said. So
yes, ma'am. It's a futures market. It always has been, always will be a futures market.
I'm sorry, you just called me ma'am. I just wanted to point that out.
Oh, sorry, Ms. Sabelhaus. I apologize.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So I know that a lot of buyers, people need to sell and buy in any market, in any time of year, whether it's spring, summer, dead of winter. Whether interest rates at the time were 15% and prices were still high, and we have our favorite saying that the sun doesn't shine on your face and your rear end at the same time. So, a lot of people, if coulda, shoulda, woulda, if they had sold 2 months ago, 3 months ago, that maybe they would have made more money. But at the same time, they may not have been able to purchase because there wasn't anything and there were 10 contracts on a house and you're paying top dollar. So I think buyers today have some more opportunity. Are you seeing that too?
Yeah, days on market are increasing. However, an inventory is increasing somewhat, but it's not increasing to a point that it's going to change everything, right?
It isn't.
Because there's still, at the end of the day, there's more people that need houses in this country that there are houses available for. And when it comes back to supply and demand, and interest rates go to a level of 5%, 4 3/4, people that's more palatable to people.
Right, it'll loosen things up.
It's going to loosen things up again, yeah. But it's not going to be so loose that there's so much inventory that it's going to drive the prices down. That's everything we're hearing anyway out there on the streets.
Right. I mean, it just makes sense when you look at purely supply and demand.
Correct.
And a lot of people are saying that the inventory is remaining tight because, a lot of people have those 2% mortgages, and why the heck would they sell at the moment?
Were you reading WTOP today, or were you listening to it?
I did not hear
because
WTOP
they came out with that exact article of the stat they threw out in our area was 90% of all mortgages in our area are at least 1% lower than what the current prevailing interest rate is, which makes sense. There's so many out there in the 3.5% range that it's a little harder for them to make that move and give up that interest rate to go to a 6%.
Right.
But the article went on to say that they've made so much money off their house over the last couple of years that if it's a 5% interest rate, it's going to be a lot easier for them to do. And that's the kind of thing we're going to start seeing.
Right. True. Well, I think that pretty much tied it up as far as what is going on with interest rates today. And again, there are still a lot of questions out there. The market is volatile, and it is always in your best interest to work with a professional if you're looking to sell or buy. And we would love to talk with you and help answer your questions along the way.
Always available.
All right. Well, Joe, always a pleasure talking with you.
Ms. Sabelhaus, the pleasure is always mine. You know that.
Yeah, I guess I'll see you in the office in about 10 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Sorry.